Hello and welcome to day 6 of 7 days of Halloween. Hi everyone, it's Monica and welcome to day 6 of our 7 days of Halloween. Well, today we're going to do something fun. We're going to create a layered card. But I'm going to create layers using some of the ephemera that I have in my craft room. Now, if you follow me on Instagram and also on YouTube, I've shared with you that I love going to thrift stores. And you never know what you're going to find in a thrift store. When I was at my local thrift store a few months ago, I found this chemistry lab book, and it had some great papers as well as this periodic table that I knew that I could scan and shrink down to use for some of my ephemera. And that's exactly what I did for this card. There's some fantastic designer cardstock out there, but I wanted to show you how you can think outside of the box. This is a book that I also found at a local thrift store, and as you can see, it's from 1935. It is a chemistry and physics handbook, and it has some great paper. It's a little bit worn, but you know what? That's what I really love about it. And I only got it for $1, so it was a great steal. So remember, you don't have to have a lot of money to create fantastic cards. So I'm hoping to give you some tips and tricks on this video on how you can create a great layered card using some product that you might find in your local thrift store. Now, in order to be able to get good scans, I do have to cut up my books. I know a lot of you are probably cringing at the thought of cutting up a vintage book, but I want to be able to use the book. I don't want it to just sit on my shelf getting dust. I want to be able to use it for some of my creations. So in order to get a good scan, I do have to have a flat surface. So once I scan my images, then I take them into my computer and I use some of my editing software to clean them up. I try to get the best resolution so that way when they do print, they're not all fuzzy, they're nice and crisp. Now the design that I'm going for today is like a chemistry lab, and I'm going to be using some of these vials from a stamp set that I picked up a few months ago, and it's from Inkadinkadoo, and they have some great vials. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and stamp these using my Misty and my black Archival ink. And then I'm going to go ahead and fussy cut them using my tonic scissors. Now I want to make these vial glasses look like glasses, so I'm going to try a technique that I saw on the internet, and some of you may be familiar with this technique. It's a broken glass technique, and what they've done essentially is just use some VersaFine ink as well as some clear embossing powder, and then they freeze it after they dry it. And then after it's frozen, they take it out of their freezer, and then they bend their cardstock to actually break the VersaFine ink. Now, to me, that's really a lot of work, but it is one way to create a broken glass effect. There is also another product out there from Ranger, and it's called Crackle Accents. It's kind of like your glossy accents, but when it dries, it actually gives a cracked effect. And to me, that's just a little bit easier. But certainly give the technique a try using your VersaFine ink pad as well as your clear embossing powder and see what kind of results that you get. Okay, so after I had heat embossed my vials, it was time to work on my layering for the base of my card. Now, as you recall, I did take some of those papers from my chemistry lab book and I scanned them and I shrunk them down. And now I want to go ahead and use some of my distress ink to age them up. The colors that I'm using are antique linen, and then I'm also going to be using some vintage photo. Now, when you're using ephemera to layer your cards, keep in mind you're probably going to be cutting some of it off as well as covering part of it. So when you do start to layer your ephemera onto your cardstock, you just want to play with it a little bit to get the look that you're desiring. Now, many people, when they are layering cards, feel like they can't cover up some of their images. But like I've said in some of my other videos, when I am layering, you want to look at the final product. You don't want to necessarily focus on the particular ephemera or image that you're working with at that moment. So as you can see, when I'm laying down my pieces of ephemera, I am putting it at an angle, and I am certainly covering up the first layer of my card. And then I do have some of that ephemera that is hanging off the edge, and that's intentional because I am going to go ahead and use my scissors to cut the excess that is hanging off of the edge. Now, if you work with digital images, you can easily scan in some of your ephemera, and then you can create layers using some of the programs that are out there. There are a lot of free programs out there. One of them is PicMonkey, and then there's another one called Be Funky, I believe. Canva is another one, and these are programs that are free and allow you to layer some of your images. But keep in mind, when you are using some of those programs, you're not going to get the texture or the weight that you're going to get when you are actually using ephemera to layer your cards. All right, so once I cut off the excess that was hanging off the edges, I did want to take my distress paper tool and edge up some of my cardstock just to give it a little bit more of a frayed look. Now remember, layering doesn't just have to be paper. It can be stickers, it can be metal embellishments. There's a lot of things that you can use to layer your cards. I'm using some clipping stickers from the Halloween collection to add some cute little clippings that are of a Halloween theme. And these, of course, are from the Holtz collection. I was able to find some great stickers that worked well with my theme. One of the stickers that I found said pharmaceutical chemist. And then there was another one that said skull and bones. And I adhered those to my sheet that said record of content. So just be creative when you're using your stickers to find ones that will work well with your theme. All right, so once I was finished with my clipping stickers, it was time to move on to my next layer. And the next layer on my card is going to be those vials that I showed you earlier in the video. Now, when I pulled those vials out of the freezer and I bent them, I really didn't get the cracked effect that I was going for. This is a technique I'm going to have to try again because it just didn't turn out as well as I've seen it on some other videos. So I pulled out my crackle that I had mentioned earlier, and I added that to my vials. I also used one of my vials, and I used crackle paste because I wanted to see what kind of results I can get on that as well. And then after they were dry, I brought out my distress stain to add some blood. And the color that I'm using for that is Candied Apple. All right, so once I started to put my card together, I realized that I did need some sort of a border to actually house my vials on. I didn't want them to look like they were floating in air. So these cute little rulers were perfect for the job. And then for my last layer, I used some of the Halloween Remnant rubs. Now, as I mentioned earlier, I have started creating some of my own digitals, and some of the images that I used on this card were some of the ephemera that I created. I do have a kit out there that I put together specifically for this type of a card, and it is called Chemistry Lab. I will leave a link, so if you want to check it out, there's going to be some fun principles that you can use, including some of these great papers that I scanned in to create some of your Halloween chemistry cards. So as I finish up this card, remember this is day 6 and we only have one more day left of my 7 Days of Halloween series. As always, I will leave a list of all the products that I've used to create the card along with the links to the stores. If you've enjoyed the video, I would really appreciate a thumbs up. And remember, I am going to have a drawing at the end of the video, or I should say at the end of the series, and I'm going to be giving away one of the stamp sets that I used this week. I'm also going to be giving away some of my principles, so I'll have several people that will be able to win some prizes for my 7 days series this week. So remember, in order to qualify for the drawing, you do have to be a subscriber to my channel, and also you have to leave a comment on every single video. So since this is the 6th video, if you are just finding me now, you're going to want to go back and check out some of those other videos so you will qualify for my drawing. All right, everybody, thanks so much for stopping by, and we'll see you tomorrow for my last day of 7 days of Halloween.